So in fairness to everybody, we need to be fair and equitable across all states that we operate.
I'll agree with that. So, in actuality, then, your report is not set for a court to rely on to make a decision of removal.
It's not designed for the legal arguments that are being made, okay? And whether they want to rely on it or not, that's not I don't have a judgment on that, but it is not designed for when, that we're taking testimony and we're taking transcripts of it. That is not part of our process.
In other words, it's not designed for an evidentiary hearing. It's between you and the school.
It's between us and the school.
Okay. I'll let someone ask. I may have someone. Thank you.
Who's next?
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Elgort, for coming down to be with us today. We really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Do you have can you give me a set number of schools or average that you all may put on probation in the state of Georgia
In the state of Georgia,
in the last 10 years?
I can give you our averages. About 3 to 4% of our schools get placed on probation. And about 20 to 25% get placed on warned, and another 20 to 25% get placed on advised. About 50% will come out of a review, all clear.
And one more, Mr. Chairman. And in Clayton County's case, unfortunately, we were dealt the blow of total accreditation loss.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever do you guys, your organization, ever do a follow-up to see what type of impact
Every time.
you may have? I mean, I've never read anything as far as the feelings of the number of students that we lost. I even had children in school. I didn't pull them because I've always told my children that it's you make that school won't make you. And I felt like I was a hypocrite to take my children out. But whether that hurt, I don't know. But I won't forget. My point is, do you ever make that public, what the effect that you may have as far as that particular school losing children because parents move away, or and what that decision caused the valuation of houses to go down in that community, businesses to move, lack of money. I mean, there's so many things happen. And I just wonder how deep do you look at decisions that you make and how it affects where people
Absolutely.
live every day.
Absolutely. And I've done that my entire career. I will tell you, personally, I was the community I lived in before I lived here. I was on the commission in New England when I first started to work in accreditation. I was also a resident that my family was in that town, a small town in New Hampshire, poor town, New Hampshire. And the commission in New England dropped the high school's accreditation. One of the first times in a long time. Had a devastating impact on the community, my neighbors, myself, that whole community, my family, my in-laws, and who ran a real estate company there. Huge impact. Students get the very best we can offer. Then look the other way when there are clearly problems that must be addressed that are shortchanging those students. And as a parent, even though in the short run there was significant consequence, in the long run as a parent, I want future kids to have a better system to serve those kids. To not just mask or hide a problem. And in Clayton, that problem could have been solved without the loss of accreditation. They had every opportunity over many years to solve it. And it is unfortunate that they did not, and the consequences that that occurred. But today, that system is far more stable than it was. It still has a ways to go. It's more stable. It is more stable. Okay? It is than it was. It still has improvement. So, yes. And those are not easy decisions.
Representative T. Or did you have another question?
Yeah, real quickly, as director, CEO of Saks Advanced Ed here in Georgia, have you ever, you might have answered this question, have you ever held a position in a school system?
Oh, yeah. I was a teacher at the middle and high school level, taught math and science. I was a middle school and high school principal. I worked in central office. I'm a teacher.
Okay. Have you ever been an elected official?
An elected official, public elected official, no. Never ran
Private
for
elected
office.
official?
What? I serve on boards now. In fact, I left a board meeting early today to respond to Representative Dukes. I was at a board meeting in Washington, D.C. I serve on many boards.
Well, thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Okay, we want to see if we can wrap this up and listen. There are 3 burning questions. I had one, but I guess I'll
No, go ahead.
defer to my members. No. Representative T, Representative Scott.
Howard.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Howard need to go
Representative Howard. I am so sorry. Scott is just all up, I can't hardly see you there. I'm sorry.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Doctor, for coming. I want to talk a little bit about something that I'm a little confused on. I heard, you talk about the stakeholders, and the stakeholders' names were part of your records, and stakeholders' names, information, all of this information is available, in your reports. And I heard the Attorney Watkins say the opposite. And I know we're not in court, and I'm not trying to get to that point, but I'm confused. Can you help me? This has gone to the Supreme Court, where I think that was one of their arguments, that he was unable to get a conversation or know who to go talk to that was bringing on these claims. So is it true or is it not true that these names are a part of your record, that are from those who bring accusations or
The
reports?
In the report, those names are not in the report. There is a schedule of people who have been brought to provide testimony or be interviewed by us that was established by the school system. They identified all that we required. The school system said, we must interview every board member and the superintendent. You then add who else you want us to interview. For in DeKalb County, they had 52 people. There's 9 board members and a superintendent. The rest of that group was identified by the school system. 36 staff members and 6 community representatives. There's a schedule. I even showed the schedule of the state board hearing. It's a document. It has everybody's name on it, when they're to appear, who they're being interviewed by. It doesn't go into the report, but it's a document that helped shape the whole experience. It's available.
So is it detailed, parts of their information that they are giving you as a part of the report, or is it just?
What we try to rely on in the report is, first off, we go back and rely on written documentation, like minutes of meetings, board policy. We reflect a lot of that and say, you have a board policy that says X, that you must, like a board policy where all board members must sign a pledge. Okay, it's your policy. It's not ours, it's yours. You have not been able to follow this policy, okay? And there are minutes of board meetings that show that you can't follow a policy that you created. You created the policy, we didn't. One of our requirements is you must follow your own policies. Their minutes of board meetings show you're not following that policy. We talked to board members who indicated we can't agree on the policy. So our response back was either change the policy or follow it. But you got to pick one or the other. If you change it, follow what you change. But you create the policy, not us. So that's all in there. We don't rely on single people, their own account of something, because it's just their perception. We then try to correlate it with actual evidence by, we look at videos of board meetings, we look at minutes of board meetings, say, okay, person X said this happened. Where else do we have evidence that actually back that up so that it can be documented? We rely on that. Now, in a court, could a defense attorney call all of these people who also spoke to us? Absolutely, if they chose to. I mean, that's their process, whatever they choose to do. But what my point is, there is transparency between the system and us. They give us the evidence, they provide us the witnesses, and then we evaluate what they give us.
Final part. Can you, being you're over the state of Georgia or this region or what?
I'm over the whole organization worldwide.
Okay.
And I have staff in the state of Georgia who work with all of our network
I
here.
think you were able to hear some of the testimony of the Warren County as well as, and I'm sure you're probably very familiar with the Sumter County, I guess is that other county, Sumter County, I believe. Yeah. The gentleman from Sumter, how he has facts based on what we didn't read them, but
Mhm.
do you sense or see or have any feeling or about there could be some problems here based on how,
Oh, I understand what
how
you're saying.
not you, but maybe some of your staff or some of the folk that maybe when you have a large organization, you can't just keep up with every piece of movement that a person makes. But if everything that he was saying, I'll use the Sumter County guys as an example, if everything he was saying was true, that when it was 6-3, and then it reversed, and they were calling for help then, but when it went the opposite way, that's when y'all came in.
First,
Trying
let me
to see if you have any
Yeah.
feeling about.
All right. Sumter County, first, a lot of what I heard today was the first time. I do know that the staff member responsible for Sumter is Jay Wanza, who's African American. I do know that the person who chaired the visit to Sumter County was an African American, John Culver. But I've never been directly involved in Sumter. Now, certainly, I would like to learn more about what he shared today. Warren County, however, I was directly involved. I actually went down there. Twice. Once to meet with Ms. Roberts and the superintendent, and a second time, I, at the invitation of the county, conducted a town hall with community people to talk about the problems there and how they could improve. At no time did our organization recommend removal of board members there. We advocated for them to all try to find a common pathway, not 100% agreement, just a common pathway. They were in tremendous conflict. We didn't pick sides in that. What we said is you've got to get the focus away from you and get it back on the kids. So I was directly involved in Warren County, and today things have gotten better, and some of the same board members are still on the board. So wasn't just the board members. Sumter, I'd have to look into, to be honest with you. This is the first time I've heard a lot of this. But like I said, we tried to be very aware of the demographics so that there can be the proper relevance in relationships.
We don't want 2 bites at that. Make sure you keep. I think you're next. You haven't get because we got 2 more people actually.
I mean, in my world, you're the most hated man I know in this state when it comes to education. Because it seems as though you pick on my black school boards. You hit on it, Atlanta. I mean, it just, how can you make it positive that, cause see what I'm finding, and it's difficult. I didn't go investigate personally for Clayton County. Now, DeKalb, on the other hand, I followed it a little closer.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems that every time, since you were formed in 1895, when people didn't want us there. And that might be what my piece of this is. That you have come along and in your tenure here, you have just dismantled the bulk of black run school boards. I mean, cause what I heard people say, well, they just need to come together. Well, they wanted to, in Clayton County, they wanted to change the person, some of the things, some of the bid process, which there was a no bid process for insurance. A man that had it for my 40 years here, he was still getting it. They decided to say no, and all of a sudden they couldn't govern themselves. I mean, those are type things that I've heard. And listening to you today, if it's the insurance, that wouldn't have stopped the school from educating children. But yet the school board was dismantled. And you say you did not suggest that they take those people off the school board.
Never recommended.
In either situation, you didn't suggest. So
Go read my testimony at the state board hearing. I never said removal of school board.
that's what I need to do, because, man, I blame you for so much in
Okay.
all of this.
I've never recommended.
It's made it, it's very hard for me to see, because in each instance, you have taken black areas and dismantled them.
I
Based
don't-
on,
It's not our role.
okay, I'm through. Madam Chair.
I'm
What's
gonna
that
be
now?
quick.
Who was that?
Me.
Since Sandra did have another question, she's going to forego. Well, what I,
Mine is really quick.
okay, because we still have two more people.
Right, it's really quick. It's in follow-up to Dr. Elhart's transparency issue. May I?
Okay, sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Doctor, you noted that there was something put up during a hearing that set forth the 50-plus interviews and the 6 community stakeholders' names. Was there ever any documents produced to any school board, let alone DeKalb, that provided a summary of what the interviews found from the school administrators, the teachers, those people that were interviewed? Were there any documents that attested to what the 6 community members in DeKalb found? And further, were there any documents of the team that went out that summarized or at least set forth the findings? Because if the names were there, but there was no findings or documents, the transparency of writing names that were given you, if in fact they were given, is different than having the documents in order to set forth whether or not you agree or not with what they said.
We met, as customary, we met with the DeKalb County Board in private before the release of the findings, the report, which is a summary of all of the things you mentioned. We had a private meeting to explicitly describe the concerns, to allow them to question what was in them. And without exception, that board said, well, some of the narrative might be off a little. We may dispute that, but we do not disagree in the areas you've identified for improvement. And to this day, they've never disagreed on the areas for improvement. And so they had an opportunity. They also had an opportunity after that date to appeal our decision within 30 days. Not the state's actions, appeal our decision. They chose not to. Okay? They had an opportunity, because in that private meeting, they agreed that they need to make fundamental change. What complicates this whole situation is that process has yet to be able to unfold because of the state's intervention.
Because of SB 84?
Right, because
Okay.
now the focus of the board is to stay on the board, not to focus on the improvements that we've all agreed, the board and us agreed, those need to be improved on.
May I ask this question again? Are there any written statements from the interviewees?
We don't
the
take
community
transcripts
members?
or record those because we can't afford to do it. The schools can't afford to do that.
Well, what what we're calling transparency is the giving of the names of the people and not the product that what was produced, a document.
They
There's
know,
no document.
they know the situations as they were described explicitly.
There were-
They know those involved.
There were 36 people who were selected from the DeKalb County School Board. Just using them as an example.
Those 36 staff members, yes.
That is, who selected the staff members to be interviewed?
The school system.
You say the school system. Is that the superintendent or was that the board?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, you have to ask them that, because my letter went to the chair of the board and the superintendent, and who actually picked who was going to be interviewed, I do not know. I know in this case, they told me the board and superintendent were involved in preparations for that, but I can't, you have to ask them who actually picked them.
You did the very same thing in Sumter County.
We do that that's been consistent for a long time.
There's no document.
Give all you all up to
Yeah.
Sumter County, is that pretty much the same thing?
Yes.
You don't know who selects the people?
No.
Maybe, okay. Now, this is what the whole crux of this issue is because basically, it appears as we have created this app. SB 84 has given you an opportunity to be a villain throughout the state, which is unfortunate because, I've always known of SACs, colleges and universities, and from the public school system, and that has been something that we have all pretty much been guided by. As a matter of fact, I think there was testimony earlier that said that they called for, I think Dr. Culver called SACs in so that they could be able to provide accreditations for the system. Now, one of the things that you said is that there were three. It was the standards, it was the student performance, and it's the stakeholders. What I would like for you to be mindful of is this, and that is, it's the stakeholders and the demographics of boards change. There is no agreement with the stakeholders because what happens is different people now are running the system. I had the very same problem in Albany, and we were this close to having SACs to come in. But it's a difference of an election because the stakeholders changed again. It was flipped. People who have, and it seems as if that is becoming a common trend. And that is why we have such a great issue with it. Historically, our community has been in a position where that it was more of the rule of law, and it's the majority that prevail. And what we do, we go home and make our cases, but we do not sit and work to destroy the system.
I agree.
And that's what I was confronted with from a personal statement in Albany. And I know all of the board members, the ones that left and the ones that came. Because the thing that I was telling them, that the most important thing is student achievement. And what we have done is we have created through 84, SB 84, an opportunity for some stakeholders to circumvent the electoral process. And they are using your organization as a mechanism for doing that. And as you go out and interview and look at these systems, we would like for you to be somewhat cognitive of that.
We are. Let me just a footnote on that. Over 90% of the complaints we get never go past our desks. We never act on it because we are cognizant of that. But I heed your words, and it is something we have to continue to monitor to make sure we're not getting caught in a political squabble that is not impacting a system. But in the cases recently, I've asked for you got to give me evidence that this is impacting something below the boardroom, below the central office, that there is an impact that's happening in those schools.
Do you think the DeKalb should have been removed?
The board members?
Yes.
I can't answer that. I think the system has serious problems relative to student achievement and a lack of focus.
But that's
Those could individually, those board members are capable people. Collectively, they were struggling to provide a focus, and we were trying to help them over a long period of time. But individually, they are capable people to be good board members.
You testified earlier, though, that you had said that you didn't want them to be removed.
I didn't
such that-
recommend that they be removed.
Right, so you had an opportunity to recommend removal, and you didn't do that, so obviously you didn't want them to be removed. I would infer that, because if you had, you have the authority to just make that as an observation and say, listen, I want y'all to go, it's best for the system.
Now, I didn't make that, our process, I believe that in a year, if they had the will, they could have made the necessary improvements. If they had the will.
When I saw SB 84, that's what I thought we were using it as. It's pretty much a hammer to say there are problems. Let's see, make sure that we can work them out.
And Representative Dukes and all of you, one thing that I would suggest, if this component stays in the law, that the school system first have the year. After the 1 year, we then give them another 6 months. Okay? There is a probation in our lineage. Probation is there, and then there's a window here called show cause as to why you should not be dropped. I advocate that if you want to intercede as a state, wait till we get to that stage. The state did not want to wait that long. But I said, you cannot build a law based on one case, Clayton County.